Hey guys, how's it going? It's your boy M.K.S here, back with another video. Hope everyone's well wherever you are. Hope you and your families are keeping safe. And I'd love to get your feedback for this video as usual. Don't know what you think. Hope you won't be too harsh, but welcome all comments. As I say, freedom of speech, freedom of expression. Leave hate mail if you must. But I'd rather be positive. But anyway, sorry, I do waffle on. And it's probably getting a bit dark now, so but it's a nice Halloween theme maybe. But anyway. So yeah, this is the third and penultimate part of Dyslexic together with Dyslexic and Black troubleshooters. And I said together with, excuse me. I don't literally mean together with, but yeah, I mean Dyslexic troubleshooters and Black troubleshooters. And sometimes they maybe could work together. But yeah, the idea about dyslexic and or Black people solving problems, i.e. as I've called it, troubleshooting. I'm probably using the term a bit loosely. I think troubleshooters are normally in a certain industry, but in this case, I mean solving all sorts of problems and maybe even monetizing such solutions, but hopefully making the world a better place. But anyway, as I say, please let me know what you think. I hope you will share these videos with all possible dyslexic and or Black people you know, and or people who are interested in dyslexic and or Black empowerment, history awareness, and that kind of thing. So yeah, these are pointers number 21 to 30 as per usual. As this one, to be honest, I've got to get into my shower and get ready to go out, so I hope it won't be too late, because it's a nightmare when you have to go out if one wants to have a shower at the same time or whatever. But anyway, nice side story. But before I get onto this, I'll say I got a message from TV licensing today about my TV license for those outside of the UK. The BBC charges a TV license, which is quite controversial. I think a lot of people don't really want to pay TV license for various reasons. Like they say the programs are too woke, or there's been some scandals on the BBC and things like that, and that kind of thing. But I was wondering, I thought I'd ask a question, and I think it's good to get consumer feedback. Let's say, how would you make, especially people in Britain, I suppose people outside Britain, you probably wouldn't know, like obviously the idea of the BBC, the Beeb as we call it sometimes, or people used to call it auntie in the past, they used to have an affectionate sort of feeling for it until some people felt it came too woke or enteric, or they might say the same about me actually, or whatever, but they might say we never liked you anyway, before these sort of scandals came out with like GB7 or that thing or whatever, but or different sort of scandals, including that one mainly. But yeah, I wondered what British people, I suppose, mainly of all backgrounds really. I know I'm talking about Black dyslexic empowerment and Black empowerment, but I wonder what you think a fair thing for the TV license should be. Do you think they should just have adverts and then people just change the channel? Normally, if an advert comes, if I don't want to watch the advert, I just change the channel or whatever. Sometimes to support a YouTuber, and I want to support, like, say, a Black YouTuber or a dyslexic YouTuber or a disabled YouTuber or whatever, I'll watch the ads and I'll go and make a cup of tea or whatever. I need to make a cup of tea. It's a bit like if my dad says, "Oh, you make me have to meet you in the pub," or whatever. But anyway, I'll have to drink just for you. Yeah. But obviously, my lame attempt at British humour there. But yeah, which I'm not anymore, whatever. But yeah, I'd say not like me to make a cup of tea, but if an advert comes on TV, I'll probably just change the channel and flick the channel or whatever. But at least I have that option. Whereas if it's a sort of fee, which I didn't really think of as being a tax, but the fact that you have to pay it in a way, it kind of is a tax. One thing I thought to even prevent it from having adverts is like for each hour you watch a TV program, you would pay £1. So sometimes I'll watch football and political shows, but it's not very often. I watch TV nowadays, main TV. I use the TV to watch the Smart Hub, especially when I'm eating. If I'm not on my laptop or whatever, so for instance, or because when I'm eating, I don't want to use my laptop if I can help it. But yeah, other than that, I don't really watch it. So, I mean, I suppose if you're at home and you're unemployed, which I am, I guess, but for lots of people, they might watch more TV, I suppose, especially older people. But yeah, I thought that could be a fair fee. So it's just £1 for each hour that you watch. But I'd love to know what you think. Like, do you think they should just have adverts? Do you think that the system is fair as it is now? You know, they could change something about it. And if so, what do you think it could change? Do you like my idea about each hour you watch. They can monitor how many hours you watch and then pay £1 each time or whatever, something like that. Yeah, it would be good if they gave people more options. Someone said to me, it is a tax. He said, come on, Mike, of course it's a tax. Come on, Michael, he said, of course it's a tax if you have to pay for it. But anyway, I'm going to crack onto the list. So here goes. So number 21, thinking of 21 again, I always say that one. But so I've heard people say, like, to know your history, to know where you're going, you need to know where you've been. I don't know if I'd entirely agree with that, because I think you can change what you think. I'd love to know what you think, whether you agree with that. But looking back at the past, a lot of people say those who fail to learn from history, like Donald Trump, I think, with tariffs maybe, or people taxing people more and they just leave, which Britain did in the 60s apparently, or whatever it was. 60s and 70s, I think it was, or at least the 60s, or whatever other mistakes we make in these wars or whatever. If society fails to learn from these things, then I guess we're doomed to make the same mistakes. We're doomed to repeat the same mistakes. I think COVID, they say every 100 or so years we have an event like COVID, apparently. So it's not an anomaly, as we might think it is, supposedly. I know there's lots of conspiracy theories about it. But yeah, so maybe dyslexic and stroke black people could look back at the past and say, this is something that happened in the past, so it's likely that a trend could well happen in the future unless things change. And what can we learn from the past? So learning from history, learning from the past, and that kind of thing. How to do things better, how to do things more better, in better English, or whatever. But yeah, so as I say, learning from the past. I don't know if I'd agree that to know your future, you need to look into the past, but I think that I mean, that could be true. I'm not sure if I would go with it, along with it, but I could be wrong, of course, as ever. But as I say, base everything on the premise that I could be wrong. I'm just expressing my own personal views or something I've heard somewhere or whatever. You can always double check it, fact check it, source check it, or whatever. But yeah, I think that covers everything for point number 21. So I'm going to move on. I'm kicking myself later if I forgot anything, ironically, in number 21, because I think 21 again, things to remember as well. As the old saying goes, 21 again. But, I think that's when it used to be that you could drink and things like that. So you could drink or get married, all that nonsense. None of which I'm interested in, really, unless there's a rich woman. But why would I want to drink with a rich woman? Moving on, number 22, look into the future. I think it'd be interesting if dyslexics work together to see what we could achieve. I think we could achieve a lot more just by working together as a team. I was trying to think of things that begin with T in a way, try to tie this into things that begin with the T, hence troubleshooter instead of problem solver or whatever. If it was a Saturday or Sunday, I would probably say problem solver. As I said before, I planned to do this on Tuesday, but I didn't get around to it. I wasn't very organised with my time, and I took too much on and got distracted, like lacked energy and whatever. So yeah, I mean, I could have uploaded at least one. I could have uploaded part one, but I thought maybe I should, just in case I don't get enough time today. But in the end, I decided to wait till today or whatever, for whatever reason. But anyway, yeah, so I wonder what dyslexics could achieve if we worked together as a team. And similar with black people, I wonder if they work together globally, if they put all their differences aside and say, we're going to have a new beginning, we're going to unite together, we're going to stop all these divisions in Africa. I wonder if even if they did it as an experiment for a year, so they could see what happens and say, our economies have improved. I mean, sometimes things take a long time. Like if someone goes to the gym for one day and says, oh, the gym doesn't work, I might say, why? I went one day and it didn't work. Sometimes you've got to try things over a period of time before they can work. So, yeah, I wonder if black people around the world network together in different areas, what they could achieve in business, politics, tech, and all sorts of different areas. I suppose the only way to know probably would be if they work together. But I'm pretty sure they'd achieve a lot more. I often think like you build more rather than destroy things and things like that. Moving on to point number 23. I would love to, I often talk about how I'd love to alleviate suffering, not just for people, but for animals and all living things. I love for all living things to be happy. That's a bit corny, but sorry. I suppose I contradict myself a few times because I collect like notebooks and things like that, and things to write on, which I have a dilemma about. One, I don't want to, well, two dilemmas. One, I don't want to get in people's way and because it takes up so much space, and two, I don't want to chop trees down. So it is a bit of a, well, I don't know if I should laugh at that, but it is a bit of a dilemma. But have this terrible obsession with wanting to write on things and want to write in a certain way and things like that. So it is a compulsion, I guess. I don't know if it would come under OCD or whatever, just me being me, but it's kind of an OCD. It's like an obsessive compulsion, and it's a disorder, I guess. But yeah, some people have it for cleaning. I have to think like my mum would probably prefer me to have an OCD for cleaning and tidying up rather than making more of a mess. But yeah, I'd love to see how dyslexic people, and again, black people as well, could work with each other. Dyslexics working with other dyslexics and black people working with other black people to alleviate suffering. I'm thinking of like, I know she's not, I'm pretty sure she's not dyslexic, but I mean, they do overlap sometimes. It could be possible, and she just hasn't talked about it or discovered it, but an autistic lady called Temple Grandin, who discovered things about animal welfare and how animals can be better treated. So even if you are going to kill them and use them for meat or whatever else, for fur or clothing or whatever, basically, and all that kind of thing, there is a more humane way to. Obviously, there's like free-range eggs and free-range chickens and whatever. Generally, free-range eggs coming from free-range chickens, but yeah, I'd love to see how we can make the world a better place. Not just for people, but especially for young people, but also for animals. How can we be more compassionate towards animals? That's a question I want to put out there. But yeah, I'd love to tackle poverty as well, alleviate suffering, support disabled people, people with physical and mental disabilities as well as learning disabilities. In December, maybe there could be more of an, I might think of more of I hope to think more of a general disabled network, so people with learning and physical as well as mental disabilities or whatever, all three of those, and all the different types of disabilities working together. Maybe learning to invest in learning from each other and supporting each other in any way we can, preferably in a libertarian way where we don't tell other people how to live or whatever. I still believe in like privatization, the deregulation of industries, lower taxes and things like that. So I want to build a more compassionate world, but not through force. I want people to have the choice. So I drink that, as I say. But yeah, I'm jumping ahead of myself. I know for December, but what was I going to say? But sorry. Yeah, I don't want it to be through higher taxes or more force, but we can support each other in a way where we choose to. I mean, I was going to say, I think that's what I was going to say. Dyslexia, some people might not class it as a disability. I think it's a bit of a curse and a gift as well, some people say. So it's not just a curse, like some people say, it's not just a gift, or it's not just a negative, or it's not just a positive, however you want to put it. But I'm hoping, I haven't forgotten anything for point number 23, but putting it simply, I want to alleviate suffering, tackle poverty, and make the world a better place. I wish that everyone would have enough to eat and drink and shelter and things like that. So yeah, the bare essentials, the bare necessities of that kind of life. Not that I watched a younger book recently, I think. Just joking, but sorry, blame tempting him again. Moving on that note, number 24. Sometimes I think of something where I say dyslexic of the day, where I raise a profile of a famous or successful dyslexic, and people could nominate such, and also they could be black person of the day as well, and they could even be black dyslexic of the day as well. But yeah, I talked about global. I think of worldwide and global for point number 24, because I suppose there's 24 hours in a day, and I think of Independence Days, nations' Independence Days. So that makes me think of like global sort of stuff. As my mum used to say to me, or probably still does, like you think on a global scale. But because I'm not that patriotic, I guess I like to help people in developing nations and that kind of thing, and certain nations like Malaysia and places like that. But I won't go into too much details on that right now. But I wonder again if Africa united and black people around the world united, and Central Africa, the country Central Africa, and different African countries, including Central Africa and South Africa, could invite black people around the world to go there, and as many of them as possible. Of course, there's only so many you can fit, I'm sure, but they could invite them as tourists, but also as people who can share ideas, and again, troubleshooters, I guess, problem solvers, and people who can share ways to benefit those nations and the continent generally. I think Central Africans and South Africa are the two main nations where I'd love for the global black diaspora to network together, people from across Africa and also Britain, across Europe, across America and whatnot. maybe different African nations can host events where they come in and share ideas and that kind of thing, share knowledge with each other and that kind of thing, basically. So that could be about AI, app building, and all sorts. So what they can learn from each other, and sometimes online. So again, I'd love to see a Black diaspora network for a global Black network, diaspora network, or whatever you want to call it, for business, politics, tech, and all sorts of different areas. Number 25, I'd especially love to support Republics. Number 26, I think people should use some of the facts about African nations being colonized. One of the reasons why I love to support African nations, in fact, I should finish one sentence at a time, but is because of the fact they were colonized. Like, if I saw someone burgle people's houses, and I saw someone whose house was burgled, I'd want to support the victim rather than the person who was stealing, the perpetrator. Controversial one, I guess, because I'm saying that colonialism to me it's a legal form of crime, I guess. And even in the international community now, I think people can charge people with colonialism and that kind of thing. I know Lenny Henry talked about 18 trillion pounds for the Black community in Britain and in the Caribbean from Britain, and he got flagged off for claiming search, because people say, one, that would bankrupt Britain, secondly, how would they be paid, and that kind of thing, and whatnot, and thirdly, even Black people would have to pay themselves and all that kind of thing. But I definitely think there should be some reparation. I was thinking that if I went to a shop or any business, a restaurant or a cafe or a bar, pub or whatever, and that kind of thing, and I stole stuff or caused damage, and they took me to court, and the judge said, or the prosecuting team said, Mr. Shenton, you have to pay X amount, or you should have to pay, and then my defense team said, how much is the amount? And they say, well, we don't know for sure, but we estimate it's between 1,000 all the way up to possibly even 1 million. And they said, well, if you can't find the figure, we won't have to pay. Some people say that if you can't find the exact figure, but surely they'd say, well, we're going to estimate it's this much, and I would have to pay it, which would be quite right, I guess. If I steal, I should have to pay back, I guess, as well as anyone else. In fact, I was thinking of a justice thing, I might say a bit later, but yeah. So I think there definitely should be some reparations. I think it should be some rough calculation of like how many people did Britain take around the world, including to Britain, as slaves. How many hours did they work? How much did they get paid in today's money? How much would they have got paid if there was like a minimum wage back then? Also, the stress they went through, separation from families, forced labour, and things like that. And I think there should be some sort of figure, even if they're given an amount, which is not the amount they should be given. A rough guesstimation, I think that would be fair. Again, tax cuts and things like that. I think I'd love to see dyslexic and for Black people being tax exempt personally. Again, these are all my personal opinions. You can agree or disagree, which is fair enough. But moving on. I think we should try and be slow to be offended, though. Believe it or not, I'm not a huge fan of PC culture, political correctness too much. I think we should have an open and adult discussion. But I could be offended by seeing some YouTubers or different people who have right-wing opinions, but I could say that's their opinion. I guess unless they advocate for hurting people, and that kind of, unless they advocate for violence or whatever. But moving on, number 27, maybe as a reward for me supporting their projects, although I'm dyslexic myself, as far as I know. I do feel a bit of a fraud, and I sometimes wonder if I have an official diagnosis, but I think I wouldn't be able to spell without the help of the teacher who was called Mrs. Fellows. I imagine she's no longer with us because she was quite old back then, and that was unfortunately about almost 30 years ago. So, but she taught me how to spell, thankfully. I think it is a bit overrated as a strength, but it's probably better that I can rather than not. And I do love writing and that kind of thing. But yeah, so I'd love to encourage dyslexic and Black people to support Italian football and Celtic, and like see how they could fundraise for such, and how they could solve any problems that Italian football and Celtic faces. I was thinking of, I'd love to Google stuff about Serie A or Italian football's transfers, and also Celtic transfer news and that kind of thing. As a slight side note, But yeah, dyslexic creativity, I'm sure, could benefit Itanform and Celtic. As part of a project, I'd love to see what dyslexic people could do for Itanform and Celtic. And I'd love to improve the relation between Itanform and the black community, tackle racism through football in Italy, tackle racism in Italy through football, however you want to put it. And also, show what dyslexic people can do, and hopefully dyslexic people will be treated better in Italy itself. And also we'll show to the world what we can do, and we'll help Itanform get back to the top, hopefully. And similar with Celtic, I mean, Celtic already does a lot of childhood work. I hope dyslexics get to play at Celtic Park. And I know they already do a lot of anti-racism stuff. And I support Celtic as a POC, a person of colour, and an anti-imperialist, which I think black people should as well, and other POC more generally. In fact, the only people who I think shouldn't support Celtic are probably WASPs, white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, or neo-Nazis rather. Even WASPs, I think some of those should support Celtic, those who are not supporters of extremism. But yeah, I'm going off on tangents. But I think anyone who's anti-racism, anti-Nazi, anti-hate, and anti-imperialist and that kind of thing, I think should support Celtic POC, non-WASPs, or even some WASPs themselves, white Anglo-Saxon Protestants themselves, maybe even, who show they're not against extremism. But obviously I'm a bit biased as a Celtic fan, but I support them as an anti-imperialist pretty much, and as someone who is not a big fan of militarism and not a big fan of the royals and that kind of thing either. So as someone who's a republic supporter, not republicanism isn't like the IRA or anything like that. I think sometimes Celtic fans take a bit too far, but talking about taking too far, I've gone way off track. But I'm sure there was something else I was going to say for point number 27, but I've completely forgotten it. I know I think of rewards, but the dyslexic and black community could look at like rewarding those who support them. And I love for people to be rewarded with lower taxes. But I know I often talk about the Walk and Hall of Fame and things like that. Listing on websites like the top sponsors of the black community, for instance, or the dyslexic community or whatever, that kind of thing, and on YouTube and TikTok and wherever else. But I'm going to move on to number 28. Again, I hope to change perceptions of dyslexia and the black community, show what we can achieve dyslexic and all black people in terms of problem solving and the strengths we have, that kind of thing, with our ideas and imaginations and whatnot, and just general problem solving. We think outside the box as well, and that kind of thing. Number 29, I hope to have a project about black and dyslexic, or POC with dyslexia and multiculturalism. I know the Yale Centre for Dyslexia and Creativity have already done a bit of work on that, but I know there's a book which is, I think it's Brilliant Black and Dyslexic, which looks at more role models with dyslexia who are black. But yeah, there could be more POC and women as well, I have to say, as well, and people from a range of different backgrounds, not just straight white male or whatever, but not that they shouldn't count as well, of course. And number 30, I hope to see what we can achieve in the future. I'd love to find a way to get to a point much quicker, and I'm out. Peace and love.